Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we're looking at TRAPTRIX. TRAPTRIX are earth plants and insects that are good at one thing and one thing only, using trap holes. By searching and recycling trap holes over and over again, you can essentially stop your opponent from playing the game, provided you go first. But worry not, even without most of the good cards, the skill can still get you what you need and give you a fighting chance going second. First, let's look at the TRAPTRIX monsters. We have Murmello. This card is our main back row searcher. When it's normal summoned, you can search a trap hole from your deck. And also, if it's special summoned, there is a mandatory effect to pop your opponent's back row. Next is Mantis. We have 2 copies of this super rare. This card, when normal summoned, can search a monster. And once per turn, as a quick effect, you can bounce back a set back row and then reset another back row from your hand. This is useful in combination with the special effect of Diarrhea. This card, when a normal summon, can revive a TRAPTRIX from the graveyard in defense. That includes the Xyz monsters. And also, when it's special summoned, you can set a trap hole from your graveyard, but it is banished during the next end phase. So you can set a trap hole, and if your opponent doesn't play into it, you can always just bounce it back to your hand with Mantis, and that will remove the downside of it being banished during the end phase. Next is 2 copies of this card, Genelesia. This card can attribute itself to set a trap hole from your deck and a graveyard, 1 each. This is really good at recycling used trap holes and also clear your graveyard so that your treacherous trap hole can be activated. Next is 2 copies of this Nepenthes. This card, when you activate a trap hole, can special summon a TRAPTRIX from your deck. And finally, we have 3 copies of this card. This card can be special summoned by sending a set trap you control to the graveyard, and also if you control no cards in your spell and trap zone, you can set a trap hole from your graveyard directly. But these 2 effects are hard once per turn and they are shared, so you can only choose one of them to use in the same turn. For our traps, we're playing 1 copy of Floodgate Trap Hole. This card is obtainable from box chips. We're just playing 1 copy because box chips, even though they are technically unlimited, you still only can get a fixed amount of them, so it's still a pretty precious commodity. Next, we have 2 copies of Amaze Attraction Horror House and 2 copies of Thrill Train. These 2 are pretty good at disrupting your opponent if they go first, because they still work even if your opponent doesn't summon anything. You can activate them whenever you want, which are pretty good. And finally, we have the Time Space Trap Holes. This card is really good as a free-to-play trap. It is just N rarity, and it doesn't target. It spins back a monster to the deck when your opponent special summons from the hand or extra deck, but you lose a bit of life points, which isn't that big of a deal. It's just 1,000. Usually it's just 1,000, but if your opponent special summons more, you will potentially take more damage, but it's still not that much. Okay, let's have a look at the extra deck. We have all Xyz monsters because of our skill restricting us from using anything else. We have 1 Dark Rebellion, 1 Rafflesia. This card is our main boss monster, and it is unaffected by traps while it has material. Traps monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects or be targeted as long as this card is on the field, except for itself. So it is really nice for providing protection. And if your opponent has a non-trap hole traps, because of the main deck, TRAPTRIX are immune to trap holes, but they are not immune to other normal traps. But once you have Rafflesia on the field, they are forced to always target the traps on Rafflesia, and this card is immune to any trap. So stuff like Compost or Crackdown just will not work. And also, you can detach material during either player's turn to activate trap holes directly from your deck, which is really good. It is a form of disruption, and this counts as a monster effect, so your opponent cannot negate it with something like a Void Ogre Dragon, for example. Next we have Vespernato. This card is a really good rank 5 to rank on top of stuff like Rhapsody in Berserk, because this card doesn't really have a lot of attack, but it has a really good effect of banishing stuff from the graveyard twice per turn. So you can use this against stuff like Shiranui, and then just to make a copy of Vespernato on top of it. We have one copy of Anti-Luminescent Light, one copy of Great Magnus, one copy of Dreadnought to summon it, and finally we have second TRAPTRIX Xyz monster. This card can detach to revive a level 4 insect or plant from a graveyard, and also if a opponent monster leaves the field because of your card effect and ends up in a graveyard or banished, you can detach one to steal that monster to your own field. This effect is pretty rare, usually don't use it that often, but it is nice to just keep that in mind to if you want to prevent your opponent from using it, its graveyard effect, for example. Usually just use it as an extra big monster on the field, because it can revive something from the graveyard for potentially a second Xyz monster, so that's nice for that. So let's have a look at the expensive version. So as you can see, in the expensive version, we're just playing more copies of the good TRAPTRIX, including triple Murmello, triple Mantis, and triple Downea for follow-up. And also, a Downea is kind of a play starter, because you can search it with your skill by setting something like a Murmello, and then using Downea to revive it to pop a back row. And we're just playing one of each of the not so good TRAPTRIX, because it's still nice for them to be in the deck for us to search, but we don't really want that many copies of it. And for the back row, we're playing triple Book of Moon, because we don't have the Link one, because TRAPTRIX has a really strong Link 1 in case you didn't know about it, and that card really benefits when you activate a trap specifically, but we don't have it, so there is no benefit in us activating traps instead of spells, so now Book of Moon is still going to be fine. And for the trap holes, we're going to play one copy of Floodgate, one copy of Bottomless, one copy of a Network, one copy of TRAPTRIX Trap Hole Nightmare, and one copy of Time Space Trap Hole. Just nice to have more varieties in our deck, so we can just switch between them and use whatever we want with Rafflesia in different matchups. And finally, for our extra deck, we were playing Utopia, Utopia Lightning, Abyss Dweller for graveyard decks. We're going Castel as a removal, and we're also just playing the same stuff like Rafflesia, Vespernato, Anti-Luminescent, and the other TRAPTRIX rank 4 as the remaining slots for our extra deck. Let's have a look at our skill. Our skill is TRAPTRIX Ground. This skill can only be used every turn, so it's not once per duel, but it is usable every single turn. And you can only use it when you control, if you contain 12 TRAPTRIX monsters in your deck. That's why you have to play so many monsters and so little back row. And once per turn, you can, during your main phase, just play a TRAPTRIX from your hand. It doesn't start a chain, your opponent cannot respond to it, so it is really nice to just make a rank 4 without your opponent being able to stop you from doing it once you already have a monster on the field. The second effect is only usable during turn 2 or onwards, so you can't use it during your first turn. You can send a TRAPTRIX, a monster, or a trap hole from your hand to the graveyard, and then add a Tretch to your deck from outside, and then you can add a TRAPTRIX monster or a trap hole to your hand. This is really good at doing the combo that I described, pitching Murmello to grab Downea, or you can just grab any trap hole that you want. Usually I will want to do kind of a test hand in this section, but because this deck is so simple and all you literally do is just summon a monster and set free, I figure we probably don't need to. So let's just jump straight into a game. We're playing against Winged Dragon of Ra, and we are going first, which is amazing. We're gonna open with Mantis and get ourselves a Murmello for next turn. We're gonna use our skill to special summon a monster, and then make Rafflesia, set 1, and this is 2 interruptions with follow-up in our hand. And that is probably gonna be enough against Winged Dragon of Ra. Our opponent will be sending a Ra to search with the skill, using the True Sun God to search another card, and then using a Millennium Revelation so that they can use Reborn to reborn back the Ra from the graveyard. And once they summon it, we can immediately use the effect of Rafflesia, send the Floodgate, flip it face down, and now they basically have nothing left on the field. we can now use the skill's second effect, because it is not turn 1 anymore, to now add a Dionaea from the deck to your hand by sending the Murmello. We're gonna force him to use the back row, but because he can only target Rafflesia, and it is not affected by trap effects, so the compost just does nothing. So we can just use the 2 monsters we have to make another TRAPTRIX, summon back another TRAPTRIX to reset a trap hole, make a third Xyz, and then just try to go to battle, but we can't really do that. And our opponent just tributes our entire board and makes Sphere mode. Oh man, I always forget that just against Ra players you never summon free monsters. I guess we'll just set more back row and pass, I guess. At least we can floodgate his Sphere mode so he doesn't get to tag out into another Ra. And now his zones are kind of clogged, and we're just wishing that he couldn't extend. And as he summons the Ra, we're just gonna flip it face down and just hope for the best. So now he has a free set of Divine monsters, and we're just gonna beat over the Ra that is not permanently flipped face down. These 2 are flipped by Floodgate, so they can't be flipped manually. So we can leave them for last and just attack the other monsters first. And then we have a bunch of traps that we pretty much cannot activate. We can't use Tretch because we already have a trap in Grave, and we can't use Time Space because Ra decks don't summon from hand or extra decks, so we're just gonna leave them in hand and not clog our own zones. We're gonna make Vespinato after banishing our opponent's 2 Ra, so now they're basically out of the game. They don't have any way to summon a Ra because they're both banished, but they still have a trick up their sleeve. It is called Mimicking Maneater Bug, and I'm not joking, this card is pretty good. And he popped our Vespinato, and now we have to contend with it. But luckily we have a copy of a Throw Train, which banishes it and resets its attack. Even though we can't beat it by battle, we can still deal a bit of damage. He crackdowns our highest attack TRAPTRIX, which is fine. And now we just stall until we win, because our opponent has 1 less card in his deck than we do. So we can just stall. Our opponent will make another Sphere mode, but whatever. Sphere mode doesn't even have a slot for him to go into because it's all filled with monsters. We're just gonna set another high defense monster. He doesn't have a Ra anymore to summon, so just, yeah, we'll just deck him out and win that way. Okay, in our second game, we are facing against Rokkets, and we are going second. So let's see what we can do with TRAPTRIX, which is a deck that pretty much really loves going first and despises going second. But the skill does give us some tools to help us do stuff going second. Our opponent is going to just summon 2 monsters, set 2 and pass. And I guess let's try to make something work. We're going to use a skill to grab ourselves a Murmello, normal summon it to grab a Tretch from our deck that we added from our skill. Using our skill again to make another monster, so we can go into a 4. We're going to make Rafflesia because he can't really beat over Rafflesia, so we can just sit on it and set 2 and pass. He's going to make Tracer and summon 1 from deck. We're going to Tretch now, popping 2 of his monsters. He's going to lance 1 of them, but we can still at least Floodgate the one that he summoned, so it prevents him from having 2 monsters on the field. And during the end phase, he's going to summon another Silver Rocket from the deck, but that is fine. We're going to normal summon Mantis, grabbing ourselves more monsters from our deck. And then using our skill again to give ourselves another TRAPTRIX, distributing itself to set 1 from deck and 1 from grave. We're going to use Mantis to bounce back the Throw Train that we probably won't use, and set a Time Space Trap Hole, so if he goes into the extra deck monsters, we can always just spin them back to the deck. He's gonna go trade in and pitching, what's that, Galaxy Spiral Dragon in Rokkets? Okay, he's gonna go Brute Section Launch and then make a Void Ogre, but we can just Rafflesia, which is not a Spell and Trap effect, so that goes through. We're gonna send the Time Space to spin it back, and then because we have Rafflesia on field, our monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, so the Galactic Spiral Dragon won't be able to destroy our Mantis. So next turn we can just normal summon Dionaea and summon back the Murmello, and pop the field spell, so that cuts them off of their follow-up. We now make Dark Rebellion, increase its own attack, go in for 25, and go in for an additional 100. We're leaving this rocket on field because even if we destroy it by battle, he can just summon another rocket from deck, so there's really no reason to do it. He's gonna go Raider Snipe, but we have so much back row now that nothing he could do really threatens us. So we can just throw Train, banish it temporarily, and remove all of its materials, and yeah, we just attack with Dark Rebellion, and he will scoop before we do that. In our final game, using the expensive version, we are playing against Phantom Knights, a tier 1 deck, and we are going second, a massive disadvantage. But we do have a Book of Moons, so let's see what we can do. Our opponent is going to do a very typical Phantom Knights opener, ending on an Ophion plus a Dark Rebellion with no materials, so they can go into Dark Requiem, and that's another monster in the game. We're just gonna skip past through the setup because we all know what they're gonna end on. He's just gonna go through the standard combo, grabbing the rank up magic, yeah, just using it, ranking up to Ophion, the trap pop itself to grab another rank up, and then grabbing the Evil Swarm trap to hand, and then setting it and passing. Okay, let's see what we can do. We do have the Murmello, so we can pitch it with the skill so that we can summon it back using a Dionea, but he's just gonna crow our monster, so we can't even threaten him to use the trap. That's fine, at least we can still make the Castell, and because he can't respond to my monster, he can't even chain the trap after I summon the monster out. So now I only have one monster, he can't use the trap to target 2 of my own cards. So when he activates the quick play, we can book his Dark Rebellion so that he can't rank up. We're going to spin his Ophion back before we have another card on our field, similar to how you deal with Dual Wield back when 6 Samurai were meta. So now without the Ophion and the trap being able to activate, we can just beat over his stuff. And unfortunately, the Phantom Knight Spear is going to be really relevant here, preventing us from destroying his monsters. And then as we go for Dionea's Revive effect, he will go and droplet that, but that's fine, we still have another monster, so we can just use that to make a rank 4. And then we could make Vespinato, and then beat over his stuff, but he's just gonna scoop before we do that because he has literally 0 follow-up in the graveyard. So yeah, good game.